welcome to the Stylecraft tutorials. This is part 7 of the Ross Crochet Along, designed by Bligh. In this video I'll be showing you how to join each of the sections and then we'll be moving on to the border. We're just going to have a look at how to join the small squares, which is done by crocheting them together with DCs on the back, which makes this ridge, but on the front it's really neat. So if you grab a small square in colourway A and a small square in colourway B and the storm blue yarn, I'll show you how to join. So I've started off by joining colourway A and colourway B through the centre stitches of the edge. So every corner of your small square should have 3 DC. So that centre DC I've joined together with safety pins, or you can use stitch markers. And then this will just make sure that your stitches all line up when you're joining. So then you can face the right side together so that the wrong side is facing outwards. And then we're going to be crocheting along here. So you need to take your storm blue yarn and put a slip knot on the end of your hook. And then we're joining just through the back loop of the DC. We're not joining through that centre stitch, we're starting the one next to it, the next one along. So we're not going through the full DC stitch, we're just going through the back loop. And same with the next stitch, you're not going through the full stitch, you're just going through the back loop. So it should look like this. So then you can just do a normal DC. And that's what you're doing all the way along. So you're moving on to the next stitch, just picking up that back loop and back loop of that opposite stitch. So this is what it should look like. So you can only see the front loop from the front. So it's nice and neat, a neat join. So we're up to our last one now. So now we've got to the corner stitch and we are going to join this one. So we're going to go through the back loop of the corner stitch from one side and the back loop of the corner stitch from the other side. Ooh. There we go. So that's what it looks like. So now we can move on to the next 2 squares. So obviously you need them to be, the matching square needs to be diagonal. And we're going to carry on doing exactly the same across here. So we're going to be working into, we're going to be taking the back loop of that centre stitch for this one. So when you set off, when you start off and when you end, you don't work them centre stitches because we'll be joining the other sections and working that centre stitch. But when you get to here, the centre, when you're joining these two, you do work the centre stitches here. So we'll just take the back loop of that centre stitch and the back loop of this centre stitch and work a DC. So you do this all the way to the end, missing that centre stitch, and then you can just cut the yarn and fasten off. Okay, so if you do that, and then I can show you how to join this bit here. So this is the part that we've just joined, and then I've joined with the safety pins to that centre stitch here. So we can fold that. So that's what we've already done, and we can join across here now. So same again, you just need a slip stitch on your hook, a slip knot. So not working into that centre stitch but the one next to it, just picking up that back loop. So if you just work in the same way all the way up to the centre, and I'll show you what to do there. So now that we've got to the stitch before the centre one, we're going to work, just pull it apart and see where that centred join is that's working vertically. So we're going to go into the same stitches there. And then jump over, and same here, we're working into that centre stitch that's already been worked into them back loops. And then carrying on working into every back loop to the end, and then you can just fasten off. So that's what your centre should look like. So you've got these little 4 marks there that make that little cross shape. Okay, so if you just finish that along here, and then you do exactly the same for all, so you've got another 3 lots of these to do now. So if you can join all the other parts of your blanket with the safety pins like we've done here, we can move on to the next bit. So this is your corner square. We're going to start by joining along here. So I'm going to fold it. I've got mocha yarn and a slip knot. So this square it has a chain 2 corner space. So we're just gonna take the back loop of one of the chains. So the back loop there. So that's all we're going to join. And here is the same. So we're just going to take the back loop of one of the chain 2. There we go. And join them with a DC. And then just taking the back loop of all them DCs. So if you work all the way along to when you get to a crossroads, and I'll show you what to do there. So work all the way along to here, then I'll show you what to do. So now I've worked all the way along the corner motif, and I've got to a part where 4 squares are meeting. I need to work into the corner stitches, so I'm going to take the safety pin out. so you can see what I'm doing. So this is the chain 2 space, and we're just going to take the back loop of one of the chains. So I'll take this one, and then here it's the same on the adjacent square, that's a chain 2, so we're just taking the back loop of one of the chains and DCing it together. Now we're moving on to the next 2 squares. So we've got one of the small squares which have got the 3 DC in the corner, and we've got a square that's got chain 2. So we can take this out because we can see where they're joining. So we've got that back loop of the small corner square, the DC, got 3 DCs in the corner, and then we're taking one of the back loops from the chain 2. Try and keep your corner stitches nice and tight so it all holds together nicely. And DCing that. Then we're moving on to the next stitch. Just getting the back loop every time. And DCing them together. Okay, so if you work along there, until you get to the center of this square, because we're going to have a look at how you join this bit. So it's your 4 small square section, joining the middle here to the middle of this square. So if you just work along here, and then we'll have a look at that. So I've got up to the section where the 2 smaller squares join here in the center of this square here, and I've stopped at the stitch just before that center join stitch here. So I'm going to go through it as normal, and I'm going to go through the next stitch as normal and finish off my DC. Then I'm going to go through that same stitch and through the next stitch along here. Grab the yarn and pull through and stop there, because we are going to DC 2 tog across these 2 stitches. Okay, so we've done this one here. We're not going into the center DCs that we already worked for this join here. So we're skipping along to the next stitch, going through that back loop, going through that same back loop that we've already gone through here. Grab the yarn and pull through all 3. So that's a DC 2 tog over them 2 stitches to that 1 stitch there. Then we're going to go into that same stitch again here, but moving on to the next stitch along here. Do that back loop, yarn over and pull through. Then we can continue as normal, working through the back loops of the other DCs. So you should be able to continue to the end of this row now. We'll be coming up to a rectangle panel shortly. I'll just show you. Yeah, so after this, after your 2 small squares here, this square is being joined to the rectangle panel. But as you can see, it's all DCs along here, so you're just joining the DCs to here as normal, so you can just keep going along to the end. Because we know how to work the 3 DCs or a chain 2 space now, so the same applies along the whole blanket. So the only thing I need to show you next is how you would work down the side of your rectangle panel. Okay, so if you get to the end of here, and then I'll show you how to do that. So I've just got to a point where I'll be working along the edge of my rectangle and joining a square, small square. So there's a few things to remember with this. So you're joining all your DCs from here to the edge here, but obviously you haven't got your a back loop to work into. So we're just working into the edge of here, just picking up a loop. So when you've got, obviously your rectangle panels made up of rows of trebles and rows of DCs. So when you've got a DC to join to a DC here, that's fine, it's just DC to DC. But then when you've got DCs to join to a treble row, we're going to join 2 DCs to a treble, because that's about the same. 2 DCs is about the same height as a treble. Okay, so I'm just going to join that first stitch. Right, so now I'm going to go into the next loop of my DC, and I'm joining it to a DC from the rectangle row. So I'm just going to find a loop. I'll join to that one there. So it's doing what you think is best and what makes it lay nice and flat. So now I'm going to take the next DC from here and find a loop from the treble. Pop it in there. Next DC, I'm going to that loop of the treble. There we go. So next DC can go to that DC. Next DC can go to that loop there. And your next DC can go to that loop. So when you've worked along here, this join should fit right in between the black and mocha row. So we'll see how we get up to there. So that was a DC to the DC, so now I need to put 2 DC to this treble row. So I can go there, pick up another DC, and that can go there. So another DC can go to that chocolate one there. Then I need 2 trebles, 2 DCs to go along this treble. So that's 1, 2. So we're still quite well lined up there, so we want this to be meeting there. Okay, so next one, join it to that DC. Oh, did I pick up the back loop? Yeah. Then we want 2 DCs to go along this white treble, so that's 1, and that's 2. So I'm just picking up a loop from the treble and DC row. I'm not picking up the whole, I'm not going around the whole post of the treble like so. So again, we'll go through there. And we'll go through there. So I don't think we need to put another DC through that blue treble, the denim treble there, because as you can see, this is joining up with this now. So place this DC around the mocha, and then we want to go through that same stitch because we've got to our join now. So that's your centre join that's been joined here, so we're missing them 2. So I've joined that one to there, so I'm going back through that same stitch and I'm going to go through this part. So I picked up a loop there, yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to go over to this back loop here, and I'm going to go through that. Oops. I'm going to go through this join here. So that's your 2 tog, your DC 2 tog. So then I'm going to go back through that same stitch and move over one. I'm going to go through here. There we go. So now we can carry on as we were before. So that DC to that DC. Then I want this DC to a part of this treble, and another DC to a part of that treble. So that rule doesn't necessarily apply for all of them. If you feel like you're getting too many of these DCs for a small space over here, you can change it as you like, just to make it fit. So this looks like it's fitted in all nicely. We won't know until we see it from the front. So I've got to this last one here now. Going through that back loop, join with the last loop from down here. There we go. So let's see how that looks. So that's not too bad. The join is where we want it to be, in the middle of the mocha and black rows, and they're quite evenly. We've got that front loop edge here and here, so that's all lined up nice and neat. So now we can continue working onto the next section, working down here and along to the end of the blanket. So that's what you do when you get to the edge of a panel, and I think that's the most complicated part about joining. So you should be aware now, you should be able to keep working along all the vertical lines and then all the horizontal ones until it's all joined. So I'll see you next time for the border.